Today in the bunker, we're going to sculpt a zombie as a result of the Sculpt a Zombie challenge from Carl Makes Stuff and Earthman Brick. So let's get started. For some reason I said, yeah, I'll sculpt a zombie. That sounds cool. In any case, I've started by adjusting my lighting. I took a standard base, drilled a couple of holes in it, used some these coated paper clips to start building myself an armature, and I super glued it down, and I'm going to super glue these parts here to kind of firm them up. So we're going to make some kind of zombie. Not quite sure what direction we're going to go. I am not aided by the fact that I cannot find my sculpting tools. I had a brand new set of sculpting tools, can't find them. So I've got some improvised ones that are basically dental picks. I've got some pins. I've got my hobby knife. So we're not going to let that stop us. We're just going to plow ahead. So let's continue. For putty, we've got some vintage milliput that I had not opened. I'm not sure how old this is. It's probably better than 10 years, but it feels like it should still work. And also I have some Knead-A-Tight green stuff, and that's probably about the same age. I know this still works because I used some of it the other day, so between the two we should be able to get sufficient putty to push around and make something, or at least try. My goal is to try and make him about the same height as a standard or heroic scale 28 millimeter. And I believe if this fellow was standing upright, he would be pretty close to about this height. Of course, this guy needs a head, but anyway, we will continue on. It seems a good size, so let's keep going. Alright, so the very end of this milliput is pretty hard, but right past, just a millimeter or two in, it seems like it's probably fine. So why don't we, I'd like to use not one of my good knives to cut that, but that's fine. I want to finish this before I die. So, cut a little bit of that off. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. We'll get those. Anytime you feel something that's kind of a hard, chunky bit, just get that off of there and get down to where it's kind of doughy. Otherwise you end up with hard, chunky bits in your mix, and that's never good. This has got quite a bit of skin built up over it. You can see it's kind of got an outer layer, so this ought to be interesting to work with. And we'll see if maybe we can't carefully carve that outer skin away. Oh, there we go. And that just comes right off of there. So let's get that fixed up and we'll get to mixing. There's our two sides. And we'll just kind of mix it together. And never having worked with this before, I don't know if there's some secret trick to it. It does not seem to want to mix very well. I'll start with a little piece. We'll kind of make him a little torso. Here's where a decent set of sculpting tools would really come in handy, but we'll make do with what we have. So I've just put some water in a lid. I'm just going to take a hobby knife and kind of wet it, and we'll use that to smooth out. Maybe I could hold it up here where you can see it. Kind of smooth this out. Alright, so that kind of works. Alright, so we're going to continue shaping that and try to make a torso. And when you start getting down to some of just the smoothing, you can just put some water on your finger and smooth out a lot of like if you errantly leave a fingerprint on there like I did, you can kind of smooth that off. And for larger things like this gap, just put a little bit of water on there, and you're off to the races. Alright, so we will maybe add some flesh to our limbs. We'll keep going. One of the things you have to be careful when you work on one part of it and then move to the next part, that you don't go back and screw up the part that you've already kind of worked on a little bit. I've managed to stick my finger right into that several times. So be mindful of it. I know a professional sculptor who is really, really good at this stuff because, you know, he's a pro. And he's got he'll take like a lamp and he'll sort of harden this a little bit under that lamp just to kind of cure it a little and lessen the chance that he can go back and hose that up. If I had lamps that threw off some heat, I would probably do the same thing, but I have LED bulbs and they don't get hot. But I'm going to endeavor to persevere. We'll continue to add some flesh, little bunny ear flesh, to the arms and legs and see what we can come up with. I don't know that I can get it in close enough, especially in this poor lighting, to be able to see it. But I've sculpted sort of a rudimentary hand there. So, not a bad start. Alright, and when you start on like the leg and you want to blend it into the torso, again, that water on the tool really, really makes a difference. After much consternation and wailing and wearing of sackcloth and ashes, I finally sort of made a leg. One of the great things about, especially a zombie, is a lot of this is going to get covered up by torn clothing, or maybe the zombie's going to be ripped open, and it'll hide a multitude of sins. I think one of the keys is knowing when to stop for a while, so I'm going to call this good right here. We're going to let that firm up because I keep destroying things that I've already done. Even though I know better, I shouldn't be. But I keep sticking my finger in stuff. And anyway, so we'll pick this up after a bit. After the initial body and everything that I put together hardened, I've come back and added a bit more to that leg. I've added some rudimentary boots. Started building up that arm. We're going to let that dry, and in the meantime, we're going to start working on a head. I have a bad habit of mixing up way more milliput or green stuff than I end up using. So while this piece is drying, I take the extra and make other things out of it. Last time I made some bags and like a pillow or a sack. This time I made a kind of a worn out mattress and just used a piece of plastic rod to press the little buttons in, and then just kind of shaped the little kind of pulls in the fabric, and then that seam around the outside. So shouldn't look too bad when it's done. We'll paint it up all nasty, and it'll fit our bed frame, so it'll be good. Alright, the head, I took the milliput and made kind of the basic shape of the head, and then I took some green stuff and kind of built a mask on the front of it to try and start to make some features. which are going to be, again, very rudimentary like everything else on this build. But I'm going to continue on. We're going to add some ears. We're going to try to do some hair. See what we get. So we built a little face. Got some ears. Got some hair on there. He's got kind of a, almost one of those 1930s fade haircuts kind of thing going on, but that's fine. So we're going to run with that. I'm afraid if I mess with it too much more, I will completely hose it up. So we're going to leave him be for the time being. One of the things you have to be mindful of when you're making stuff like this is that all of the pieces are on the same scale. Here's his little head. Well, when I say little, I mean little. It is not even close to being the right size. So we're going to start all over again with the head, but in any case, the body, we added some riot armor to him. And I've given up trying to get a hand to stick on there, so that's just going to be the stump of a wrist. And once we get a head made, then we should be ahead of the game. Everything appears to have dried pretty well. It's very firm. So we're going to add some ears to this big pumpkin head, and then we will attach it to the body. And I think we'll work on the base a little bit and throw some paint on this bad boy and see what we get. Alright, and there's some little ears on his head. They're not the most straight or even very good looking, but they'll do for now. So let's get him glued together. So we've got his head on. I also added him a little badge and a holster. Of course, his hand is gone, so probably that's where his pistol went. So with that, I'm going to let him dry a bit, and then we will apply some paint. I could probably keep working on this guy, but I have a habit of screwing up what I've already done, so I'm trying to avoid that. So we're going to call it good right here, and once we get some paint on him, we'll see what we get. And with some paint and a little bit of basing work, that's what we've ended up with. Looking at him now, it kind of looks like Bert and Ernie had a kid who grew up to be a cop and became a zombie. But in any case, had fun doing it. I learned a bit, mainly that I'm not a sculptor, so don't expect a Kickstarter with a range of figures anytime soon. Definitely check out Carl and Earthman Bricks zombies. I'm going to link to their channels in the comments. This is not normally the kind of stuff that I do on this channel, which, you know, if you follow along, you're probably like, why are you doing this? You're horrible. And you would not be wrong. But I thought I'd do something to kind of get out of my comfort zone, and this was definitely it. Even though it looks like a Muppet cop baby who got bit by a zombie, learned quite a bit doing it. So I appreciate you watching, and hope you have a great day.